So very important we look at what could have been the cause of this. According to the reports, alleged reports that are coming aboard as to the question of, Al-Shabaab coming out to claim responsibility. And you saw someone, one of the survivors coming out to say, they sort of watched the events as they, and unravel themselves. And, he highlighted that at some point in time, these attackers were mentioning words of, like, you people are killing our very own down on ground. What do you expect? We definitely have to come out here and protect them. So we look at the role of Amisom and the question of the KDF soldiers that we have. Yeah. Government constantly insists that it's important that we have these KDF soldiers so that we're able to protect our borders and also, ensure that there's peace more so in Somalia, so that the rest of the East African community and Africa at large and the world at large is well protected in terms of, the fight against terrorism. But in real sense, is this working to the advantage, or is this serving the purpose? Probably to start with you, Franklin.
No, it's not. And when I was here at Ebru on the 7th anniversary of the invasion of Somalia, Operation Lindinchi, I was asked by Ayub what has been achieved. Nothing. Not so much. Very little has been achieved. In fact, very little has been achieved by Amisom itself since it did drive Al-Shabaab, or Al-Shabaab withdrew from Mogadishu in 2011. And I have been, it's public record, whether it's in the newspapers, that I've written articles as early as December 12th, 2011, calling for the KDF to be withdrawn from Somalia into forward operating bases within our border. When I introduced the notion of a Somalia border control project in March of 2014, a $258 million project involving fences and watchtowers, re-equipping, reorganizing the administration police, sharing more intelligence between the NIS, the KDF. The fact is that our strategy, such as it is, has not worked. We are not safer today than we were on October 15th, 2011, and that's a fact. And it's not that if you're not caught up in the attack at 14 Riverside Drive, it doesn't mean that you're not traumatized by it. I know people, including myself, who will never go back to Westgate. It's true. I don't like going. I won't. There were people who were stuck in the cinema at Westgate, and that put me off ever going to the cinema here. There are lapses, there are lapses and gaps in almost all of the mall security. You can't be on guard all the time. It is your proactive intelligence work will tell you what are likely targets. And Pekatoni was a likely target because, in fact, this was a resettlement village of outsiders plopped down in Lamu. Right? And Pekatoni didn't even have a mosque. So I'll be honest, I never even thought about that until I was on air the day after in Pekatoni on KTN. And it was quite obvious that Al-Shabaab owns the night. We're sitting here today and we still have this woman, Sylvia
missing,
Romano, Constanca Romano, who was abducted by Al-Shabaab, as I said, on November 20th. She's either in Boni Forest or up in Somalia. And yet I've been seeing intimations and indications that the KDF announced victory in Somalia. In Somalia, since when? A
couple of times, But
why? You see they beat off one attack on January 1st, and they killed some Al-Shabaab terrorists, which was good. The Al-Shabaab terrorists messed up. You're not always successful. You learn that in the Marine Corps. You can't win all the time. But since when did Amisom triumph? That's not true. The Al-Shabaab is not a ragtag group of terrorists, guerrillas. This is an insurgency. And it's not about fighting terrorism, it's about countering insurgency. Particularly, there are genuine grievances, insurgencies of whatever color or stripe. Feed off genuine grievances of the people on the ground.
Either way, the situation would not be better if at all we were to withdraw.
The situation will be better if our withdrawal were to be done in a way that we re-equipped, reorganized our forces, and actually got down to providing security in the 5 frontline counties of the counties adjacent to Somalia.
Or better yet, stiffen up the operations down there.
And doing it in a way that you don't ride roughshod over people's rights. But you see, what's happened in those counties is devolution has been derailed. Devolution is all about services. It's hearts and minds. And hearts and minds is the big part of what I learned as counterinsurgency before the dawn of time. It wasn't just killing as many people as you can. It wasn't about drone strikes. It wasn't about showing off your fancy rifles. It was that people are not going to report the presence of al-Shabaab, whether in Eastleigh, Mandera, or anywhere else, if they don't feel secure. This is over and above the problem that we know that we have a problem of police extortion, lack of education, lack of training. But people will not be on your side if when you go back to your camp, they get killed by al-Shabaab. And you know, al-Shabaab doesn't have any qualms about killing people, extorting money. But they are also administering areas in Somalia. They have liberated zones. They have not lost. And so when I've been seeing this thing about the KDF has won, no. You know, we have a situation where we forget. I don't forget. You forget, Linda. Maybe you do.
You don't.
What happened to the air tractors, the close air support aircraft that were ordered in 2016, 2017? And our troops on the ground, our police on the ground, have a genuine need for close air support. I can guarantee in the Marine Corps we would never have gone into the bush without all the modern equipment that we could have. And the Kenyan Defense Forces shouldn't be going into the bush, going against al-Shabaab if they can't be at least as well equipped as we were 40 years ago. This is very serious business. Al-Shabaab is, of course, yes, we're here, we're killing your civilians because you're killing ours. That doesn't even have to be true, by the way.
Okay.
I don't believe the KDF are killing civilians right, left, and center.
You don't.
I don't. But is anyone going to believe
that? Is the kind of the report that we're actually getting on ground. I mean, from the attackers at least.
The attackers are setting the narrative.
Yes, right.
I was heard, I think, is 1 year ago or 2 years ago when Sheikh Makaburi was assassinated or killed in Mombasa.
Yes.
I was caught up in that crossfire because I was seated in a certain building just next to Masjid Musa Mosque. And I could hear the teachings in the mosque, and it was serious because the most important thing they were telling what I would call their congregants is that the KDF and the Kenya Defense Forces are in Somalia, and what they're doing in Somalia is killing our brothers and sisters. So we have to do something about it. You have to you have to arm yourselves. You have to go against these KDF officers. And if you can't find these KDF officers, because they're killing our brothers there, let us kill their brothers here, who we view are not part of what then they would call the Islam religion. It was very unfair. It was very bad. And immediately when the police stepped in, there was serious fracas. And I was caught up, and I was just boarding a tuk-tuk to get to town so as to escape that kind of mess. And by bad luck, I was caught up in a tuk-tuk with 2 other guys who had been shot in the head. So these guys, when they viewed us, they could notice how our hair was different. So they told us, we're going to kill you in the mosque in the middle of town. So by good luck, I was next to my brother who's been living in Mombasa. He was sitting in the same tuk-tuk. He could understand the Kiswahili I was speaking because I could hardly understand the kind of So then my brother, when we just got to the University of Nairobi complex, we stepped out of the tuk-tuk, and the guys were very, very angry. They said, "Bahati yenu sana." I mean, it's by luck that you're out of that place. So I know these guys can be, it is a software issue where we're dealing with people who really don't care much about what you say. What they know is you're killing our brothers. It is really been drilled into them.
How do we run away from that? And how do we whitewash this narrative that has been coined for a long time? Because then again, we also are trying so hard to make this not look as though it is a religious attack. I mean, it's based on, a religion or grounds of religion, because that is quite sad. I mean, there are other Muslim brothers who are out here and they're so genuine, and they're so, and they are also out here condemning these kinds of attacks. But then again, the picture that has already been painted is out of this world, and it is quite sad. Like what, Franklin has said, it looks like the terrorists themselves are equally, setting the narrative, and we are buying into the narrative. Why are we allowing them this? I mean, why don't we come out and castigate this kind of information with also in communication that is actually packaged well, so that we whitewash this? Because at the end of the day, when they come out strongly, you saw what the leadership said. We are actually conducting a successful operation on ground in Nairobi today, and it's actually the reality. You cannot rule that out, because that is basically what was ongoing at that particular time, and that's the reason why we knew that indeed indeed Al-Shabaab has come out to acknowledge and take responsibility over this. So how do we whitewash this kind of negative narrative that has been coined more so on the question of religion?
Okay, well, before Franklin steps in, I think it is very necessary that we stop divorcing what happens in the country as related to terrorism from religion. Because what happens in the country based on terrorism is something that is founded and is embedded in misunderstanding of the religious concept of what then they would say is protecting their religion and fighting for their brothers. There's a serious misunderstanding. So then the government should look at it from the point of what then should be done to those who are being taught this kind of careless doctrines and very dangerous doctrines. The government should look at the leadership of that denomination, the leadership of Islam, and talk to them and enhance, the kind of teaching they're giving to these people, and even regulate the kind of teaching they're giving to these people. Of course, that would be confining people to a point where their rights are being stifled. But it is important there is a coordination between the government and even the leaders of this kind of groups.